Hey everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch and to my greenhouse where we are going to kick off week 2 of our garden tour series. So what I have decided to do, and I shared this last Monday, is to share a garden tour with you every single week on Mondays. I'm going to try to be really consistent with this so that you can come along with me throughout the entire gardening season and see what I do each week and watch the development of the garden. And I'm really excited to share that with you. So many of you shared with me that you were really excited about these garden tours and felt that it would be a really good way to learn how to really walk a garden through all the way from that first seed going into the ground until the harvest. And I am excited to share that with you. So we're going to start in here. I did a lot of work in this greenhouse over the last week, and I have also shared in the kind of 2 to 3 videos that will precede the garden tour videos, we will be digging a little bit more deeply into some of the things that I'm going to just go over quickly in these garden tour videos. So if you're interested in those, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you can get notified, and hit the bell notification so that you can get notified when I post those more detailed videos. I also am going to share with you a seed haul because I went and bought some more seeds yesterday, some things that I needed that I didn't have in my seed stash, along with some more bulbs and 2 new varieties of strawberries that we're going to try. So we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, I'll catch you up on what's going on in here. You can see a couple houseplants behind me here. I actually just brought these down because they are needing to be divided. The spider plant here, there's way too many spider plants growing up in there, so I'm going to divide that one. And then I have a Boston fern that is looking very sad, very much needs a larger pot that I'm going to be potting up there, but that just sort of explains the house plants in here. I'm going to be doing that a little bit later today. May do that in today's video. We'll see. I also got up to making some paper pots. So I make paper pots out of newsprint, and I find that these are, number one, they're virtually free because a box of newsprint only costs $2 and I can make hundreds and hundreds of paper pots out of them. But also I find my plants do really well in them. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I've recently been doing some research around growing in plastic and sort of the effects of growing on plastic on the plants themselves. Not so much as far as the chemicals that may potentially get absorbed by the plant and then end up in the food that we're consuming, although that's of interest to me as well. What I'm talking about specifically is research on what the chemicals in that plastic do to the actual growth of the seedlings. A lot of the plastics that we're growing in for seed trays are not actually a food grade plastic, and they do release chemicals into the soil that can inhibit the growth of the plant itself. So I haven't done a deep dive into this research. I've just kind of scratched the surface of it, but so far I have found that to be something that there's some science to back up. Also, I think that just having the airflow, the oxygen, the roots not hitting something hard, because even with these paper pots, the roots can actually start making it through and underneath. You won't see that yet because, oh no, not yet, because I just did pot these guys up. But eventually you'll start seeing seeds come out, or roots, rather, come out of the bottom of these. So I think that the plants are just happier in general. So as you can see, there's very many here. I almost have all of my tomato seedlings potted up. Most of my flowers, I still have probably another 100 to get put into larger pots, but I should have that done within the next couple of days, and then I'll be done potting up for the year, which is awesome because it is a little bit tedious. I did get all of my peppers done, and I just did these ones the day before yesterday, and they're already looking very happy in the paper pots. So as you can see, I make different sized paper pots so the tomatoes get a larger one. I like to bury my tomatoes down quite deep so that they get a nice strong root system. And then of course the peppers don't need quite as much. So that's the nice thing about the paper pots, is you can adjust them to the size that you need. I also did the same with my fennel. This is dragon fennel here, and I had already potted it up. So I started them, I think I started these in seed blocks, or in soil blocks rather. I can't remember. Either that or really small containers. And then I potted them up into a larger one. They are growing quite vigorously, as you can see. So I put them up in these, and they'll be able to stay in these until they go out into the garden. They are looking nice and healthy. What else do I have to show you as far as potting things up? Oh, I do still have some peppers and some celery to do back there. But I did want to show you these just bringing you along with me as I learn. These are eucalyptus. First time I've been successful getting them to this stage. And as you can see, they are starting to grow some little branches here. You see those little branches? So eucalyptus is actually a tree. It's very slow growing, but a lot of florists grow them as an ornamental to add to bouquets because they look really beautiful, and of course they smell really nice. I'm just growing them for fun, for an experiment. They do smell nice, but it is very challenging, and I am always up for a challenge. So I'm hoping that I can grow these and then potentially just use them as a houseplant inside. But I'll keep you updated on that progress. And I think that's it as far as anything new that I need to catch you up on in the greenhouse itself. One thing that Dan and I were talking about this morning is that I really have kind of outgrown this space. This is the first greenhouse that we grew, that we built when we first bought our ranch almost 10 years ago. And I actually originally started my seeds in here, but I would bring sawhorses in and set boards up and start my seeds that way. And then I would grow in here in the summertime. And I did that for a couple of years until we got our high tunnel. And then we converted this into a seed starting greenhouse. And it has been absolutely fantastic, but I am finding that I am outgrowing it rather quickly. The only thing about when we're thinking about growing and developing things on the farm is that our kids are starting to get older and they're starting to leave home. And so the amount of food that I'm going to need to grow is not going to be, it's actually going to decrease over time. Although I still grow food for my adult kids too, but not on the scale that I did when they were at home. So I don't know if I should just kind of make do with what I have with this, knowing that within a couple of years, this size will probably be good for me again, or go up and have something a little bit bigger. I mean, having something bigger is not going to hurt, even when I'm having or planting less seedlings, because it's just more space to move around and more space to have. But I'm not sure about that yet. It's kind of a weird stage of life to be at where because what I've done for my entire life is built, like grown. Everything has been about having a bigger space, a bigger house, a bigger farm to grow with my growing family. And then now we're at the other side of that, where our family is starting to get smaller. And that's just a weird time, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. Just having to make different choices and just look at our future a little bit differently than we did when we were younger. So I'll keep you updated with that. I'm not sure what we're going to do. But before I take you guys outside and catch you up on what's going out in the garden or out in the garden, let's show you what I ended up getting at the feed store. So I did get some more strawberries because I have the strawberries that I have planted. You can't really see them because my big spider plant is in the way. But in behind there, I have my green stalks, and they're planted out with a bunch of strawberries that I started from seed last year. And a lot of them are coming back, but there are some that aren't. So I decided to get some to replace those ones that aren't growing. It's called Honeyo. Right there. It is a large honey sweet variety, firm fruit, and looks good. So I got some to go in there. This one I got because my daughter thought these looked really fun. So this is a new variety. These ones are called White Carolina, new variety with a slight taste of pineapple. So I just thought those would be fun. Each one of these has 10 strawberry plants. So I'll fill out my green stalks. I have 3 more green stalks that I'm still waiting to come in the mail. And I might do another one with strawberries, or if not, I'll just throw these outside somewhere. And then I got some tulip bulbs. This is not the right time of year to plant tulip bulbs, although you can, which is what I'm going to do. Normally what you do is plant them in the fall, same as garlic. And that allows the bulb to develop a bit of a root system, start building up a little bit of sugar reserves, and then in the spring, it's able to put all that energy into growing a beautiful flower for you. Spring planting will sometimes get you blooms in the summertime. Sometimes they're a little bit paler, not quite as beautiful as they will be the second year, but they will come back the second year, and then you'll get beautiful bulbs then. So I just found these. I thought they were pretty. They were a decent price. And I decided, what the heck? I wanted to put some more into the forest garden because I have a few tulips that are coming up there, but I wanted some more. So, and I could not resist these. I mean, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So beautiful. So this one's called Columbus. Oh my goodness. I mean, look at that. So beautiful. So this one's called Finola. Estelle Rijveld. Look at, I mean, how could I resist? I couldn't, obviously. Then this one's Bendigo. Yellow Pomponette. Isn't that beautiful? A little bit more of a simpler one, but just gorgeous. Such a beautiful bright color. So what I'll be doing with these is going and popping them in the ground probably later on today. You do want to get them when you're going to plant them in the spring as early as possible because they do need a little bit of cold soil, so soil that's under 10 degrees Celsius in order to trigger them to grow. We're going to have soil in that range for at least another 4 weeks. I could have put these in the ground if I had seen them. I would have probably a couple weeks ago, as soon as the ground was ready to be worked, as early as possible. So I'll be putting those in probably later on today. And then for bulbs, these ones are Lilium Stargazer Assorted. Pretty, hey? I have never been a big bulb grower ever, actually. And this year I've been really inspired by my friend Serena from You Can't Eat the Grass. And so I've been buying them. So when I went to Costco about a month ago, I guess, I ended up buying a whole bunch. And I'm actually planning on getting a lot of those started now. Normally you won't put these kinds of bulbs into the ground until your last frost date, just because they don't handle frost well. But because I have this little greenhouse here, I'm going to get some of them started so that I can have some early blooms. So we've got those ones. We have some gladiolas. Look at that strawberry swirl. I mean, how beautiful. Then we have a rainbow mix of glads. Okay. I've got a couple of bags of perennial wildflower seeds, and I've planted this type of mix before, which is a pretty common mix for our area. And usually there's only a couple of these that will come back year after year. For the most part, they act as an annual. Like the poppies, for instance, won't come back, and they don't self-seed, and that seed doesn't come back usually. Sometimes there'll be a few. But the daisies will come back. The bachelor buttons will come back. The wild geranium here will also come back. That one can be a little bit invasive, so do be careful with that one. What else? That's about it as far as the ones that are actually going to come back. There's just a couple of areas that I have where I have big swaths of brown dirt from where Dan has been building roads, and an area where we're putting in a spring where there's some banks that are they just don't look fantastic. So I thought I would go throw these around. One thing that I will caution you whenever you're buying wildflower seeds is to make sure that you pay attention to whether there are invasive species that could potentially get into outside of your yard and spread invasively in your neighborhood or your forest or anything like that. That's just something to keep in mind when buying wildflowers. I also got this one, Wildflower Shady Garden. These ones I'm going to spread around underneath a tree by my house that is shady and just looks kind of gross because my dogs have been using that area to lay all winter. And they've just killed all the grass and it looks terrible there. So I thought I would put some fresh soil down and then sprinkle this and then put a little bit of a garden fence around it to keep the dogs off of that area until these are established. There's quite a few here that will also make it through. But for the most part, it's just going to be annual. And I just thought, what the heck? They were inexpensive, those bags of seeds. So I thought, we'll just get them and come what may. Now on to our seed haul. I bought quite a few seeds, as you can see there. I didn't have any of my Autumn Beauty sunflowers left. So if you'll remember, last year, one of you sent me some Autumn Beauty seeds, and I thought they were just so incredibly beautiful. So beautiful, in fact, that I used them in the design of our Little Mountain Ranch tea towel that you can see there. So there's the Autumn Beauty sunflowers on there. These are sold out, but we are working on designing another one. So I'll keep you updated with that when we get a little further in the process. But yeah, I just loved those flowers last year. So I got myself some more seeds. And remember when we were planting Cosmos last week, I said that I had regretted not having the white and dark pink and light pink mix. So I found one of these. So I'm going to get these planted probably later on today because they just looked so beautiful in the garden last year. I thought this was kind of cool. This is a variety of corn that I've never grown before. I know every single year I keep saying I'm not going to grow corn again because I've only been really successful once since moving here and trying corn just about every year. But I saw these ones. It's called Early Sun Gold Hybrid, and it specifically says that it is perfect for Canadian short growing seasons. So I thought, what the heck? We'll give that a try. So I got 2 packs of those. So we'll give those a try and see. I'm always looking for things that I can grow in our northern garden successfully. So we'll give those a try. I got some parsnips, and I'm actually going to be going out into the garden and planting these later on today. Parsnips are fairly hardy to frost, and they also take quite a long time to grow. So getting them into the ground as early as possible is important. I haven't tried these white spear before, so we'll see how they turn out. I do love roasted parsnips though, just so delicious. Goliath bush bean. This is another one that I haven't tried before. I needed some bush bean seeds, so I thought I would try a variety that I hadn't tried before. And this one says, the aptly named Goliath produces pods up to 22 centimeters long that maintain their tenderness and fine flavor. This is a great choice for home gardeners and market growers alike. Fast growing plants that are tolerant to brown spot and bean comic mosaic virus. 57-day. I planted these Market More cucumbers last year, and they grew really well, and I was actually able to grow them outside on a trellis instead of in my greenhouse. Normally I have to grow my cucumbers in the greenhouse in order to actually get enough to make it worth the space that it takes up, but these ones grew well outside, so I'm going to try that again this year. I got some Royal Family Lavender sweet pea because, like I shared a week or 2 ago, I'm planning on using one of my pea trellises that I planted my snap peas on last year and filling it entirely with sweet peas, and I needed some more sweet pea seeds, so I got those ones. And also these ones. This one's a rose pink one, a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do, I have a whole bunch of different varieties of sweet peas, is I'm just going to open up all the packages, put them in a bowl, mix them all together, and then plant them so that they are just a rainbow of color and scent on when I walk in the garden, because it's going to be right where my gate is. It's just going to be beautiful. I got some more Dill's Atlantic pumpkins. I always grow 2 of these plants every year and grow really big jack-o'-lanterns for my kids. So the reason that I got this one, this is a Maasai bush bean. I haven't tried this one before, but it specifically said that it is suitable for raised beds, field growing, or containers and balconies, and that it is a very tidy plant. So remember I was talking about growing my beans this year in where I planted my pickling cucumbers last year, because I have a ton of holes there, and I am going to do some pickling cucumbers there again, but I don't need as many as I planted last year. So I thought that I would plant my bush beans there, and this is a nice tidy little plant, so I thought we would give that one a try. Got some more cucamelons, because these cute little cucamelons are absolutely adorable. They look like a fairy watermelon, and they're very delicious. They're very lemony flavored, at least to me. They taste quite lemony, and a couple of my kids really like them, so I got some of those. This beautiful sunflower, look at that. Gorgeous red sunflower. This one is called Red Sun. It's a very appropriate name for that one. Got some Bloomsdale long-standing spinach, which we're actually going to get planted today, along with countryside spinach. Spinach grows best in cool weather. I actually have some spinach that came up from where I planted my spinach last year, probably 2 weeks ago, out in the garden. So I am going to get some of this started. It's quite frost hardy, but what I'm going to do is plant it underneath one of my growing domes. I'm just going to go get these or have them covered up, and that will get them going quickly and protect them from any hard frost, because we are still getting hard frosts out here. So I wanted to get that done. Okay, and also Bright Lights Swiss chard. I'm the only one in my house that likes Swiss chard, but even just as an ornamental, it is so incredibly beautiful. So I'm going to get some of that started later today as well. We have the Icelandic poppy mix. This is just to add to all the other bajillion different kinds of poppy seeds that I have this year. I'm going to do the same thing with these as I'm going to do with my sweet peas, and that is to dump all the seeds in a container, mix them all up, and then spread them in an area. I can't wait to do that. This is something else. Man, the tasks really start stacking up really quickly this time of year, because these I also need to get into the ground as soon as possible, because they do best if they're planted early in cool soil. So that's something else I need to get done. This one is Renee's Garden, and I have never grown any seeds from this company before, but I really liked their seed package. That's actually what attracted me to them. Beautiful seed pack, lots of information about growing the seed on the back. And this one is a baby pak choi. I love pak choi, so got that. And then there's one other thing that I wanted to show you that kind of made me smile. Okay, you know how when I walk around my garden and I talk about planting flowers, I'm sure this probably gets annoying, but I always say I wanted a little splash of color here. You know how I always say that? Well, this one says all you need is a little splash of color. I agree entirely. I totally agree with that sentiment. That's all you need to bring a little bit of joy to your life, is a little splash of color. So, anyway, those were all the seeds that I bought, so I have my work cut out for me to get a lot of these things planted. I don't think that we're going to have time today to get into planting all of these things that I need to get planted, so I will put that in the next video, because right now I want to take you on a tour of the garden, catch you up on everything that has happened in this last week, because it has been a very busy week and we got a ton done. The first thing that you're probably going to notice is that we have a new area that is covered with weed barrier over there. So let's go a little bit closer and I'll explain why I've done that. Cows and my horses out there on the field, making me very happy. They're actually going to be off this field in the next probably 5 days, because this is our hay field, and technically our cows shouldn't be out there right now as it is, but we are fencing an entirely new pasture area for them to go, and it's not quite finished yet. So they get to be out on the hayfield, which makes them very happy because it's really nice grass out there. But you'll probably also notice that there is a big area that is all dug out here. That is our brand new septic field that we just, Dan and the guy that we hired to do it, just got finished this last week. And it's not all covered yet. You can actually see the tops of the tanks over there, because the area was quite wet from where our previous septic system wasn't really working properly. So they wanted to keep that area dug up around there just for a week or two to just allow it to dry out before they covered it back up. And then we're going to get it all seeded, and it'll be fenced off over that, because we don't want the animals and the tractors going over where our new field is. But it will have some nice grass growing there and won't look quite the same as it does right now, which is a little bit messy, but that's okay. Very happy to have that project done. That's something that we have been needing to do for the last couple of years. But that's not why we're over here. We are over here to talk about all of this weed barrier that you can see here that looks a little bit unsightly, truth be told. The reason that I have this here is because it has a lot of grass seed in this area, or grasses in this area, like the quack grass and other grasses. It's right next to the hayfield, of course, so a lot of that seed blows into this area. And I kind of just sick of battling with it. So I decided that I would cover it up and keep it covered for the next couple of years and then make a decision about what I want to do here. What we have talked about doing is extending out the forest garden into this area and adding some more fruit trees. There is a possibility we might decide to add some fruit trees in here this year. But even if we do that, we'll probably just cut holes out of this and plant the trees in here in this stuff rather than removing this entirely. But if we don't end up doing that, I'm planning on just putting squash down here this year. So I'll put some holes in here just like I did up that I showed you last week where our asparagus patch used to be. I did that last year and planted squash in it and it looked really nice. And that's the nice thing is the squash plants take over and cover up all of this black weed barrier that is here. So the reason that we have rocks on it is we actually do have it all pegged down, but we get a lot of wind in here off the hayfield, and no matter how many pegs we put on it, it tends to rip up. So the rocks just help to hold down the weed barrier and the pins that are holding it down. So it's going to look a lot better when I have some stuff planted in here, but it is a bit of a relief not to have to worry about dealing with the grass in this area this year. So my gripe with weed barrier is the fact that it is a plastic and it does break down and put microplastics into the soil. And there's just so much evidence to say that that can cause a lot of issues with your soil in the long run. So it's not something that I love to do, but I have not found an alternative that works for me. So I've tried all the things, friends. I've tried deep wood chips. I've tried the several layers of cardboard with mulch on top and all that kind of stuff. And what I have found is just because of the size that I am gardening at, one, it's really hard to actually source enough either wood chips or cardboard to cover areas the size that I am doing. And also it's super time consuming. So I have not yet found a better option than this for really killing the grasses with. And so this is what I'm using for now until something better comes along that works for me. But like I said, it is a bit of a relief just not to have to worry about this year. I just wanted to show you something I just noticed when we walked over here. We have some little baby raspberry leaves coming out on our raspberries. Getting into my raspberry patch and getting the rows kind of put back in again and everything trellised up is not something that I got to this week, but I will be getting to, or sorry, last week, but I will be getting to this week. So hopefully by the next tour, I'll be able to show you this all cleaned up and looking like it should so that we can actually get in there and pick the fruit when it ripens. We got quite a bit done on this part of the garden over this last week. These 2 rows have been amended with some fresh compost, and so they're nice and raised up. The pathways have been cut in again, and I'm really happy with that. This bed over here was the one that was infested with the mint that I shared with you last week, and we did get this all taken out, all the soil removed. We put the soil far away in a spot where even if the mint rhizomes that are in there do start growing, it's not going to be in an area where it's going to cause a big problem. And then underneath it, we put 2 layers of really good quality weed barrier to stop the mint from coming up. At least that's the hope. But it's all filled with nice fresh compost and ready for planting. Very excited about that. And when I did empty this out, I did find some of my herbs that had actually overwintered. Even a lavender plant, if you can believe it, that overwintered this year. We had a really mild winter. Normally I don't find that herbs overwinter in our climate in raised beds very well because there's just not enough insulation. They do far better if they're in the ground, but it was warm enough that they made it through, which is very awesome. Okay, this is another area where we got quite a bit of work done this week. We pulled up the weed barrier from this side and put a new, probably 3 inches or so of compost underneath it, dug up all of the grass that had started to make its way in underneath the edge, and then covered it with some fresh compost and covered it back up with the weed barrier again. This over here is the last row that I have to do that with, and I haven't obviously gotten to it yet. You can see all the grass is growing out of all the holes. This is where I'm going to be planting the beans that I showed you. So I'm going to do half beans and half pickling cucumbers. I think they're going to grow really well in this kind of situation, and it's kind of nice also growing beans in weed barrier like this because you don't get the splash up from the dirt and the soil getting on your beans, and they're nice and clean. So that's the plan there. That will be something that we'll do this week. Hopefully by the end of this week, we are going to have the garden pretty much ready for planting, which is quite exciting. We're still 5 weeks away from being able to plant out for most things in the garden, but it's really nice to have it done so far ahead like this because it's going to make planting a lot more enjoyable, not to have to worry about getting all the beds ready at the same time. Oh, actually, I thought that was the last one, but it isn't. I still have this bed over here to do. The soil that is along this side of the garden is terrible. It's really, really full of a lot of clay. So it's really dense and just not great. And I haven't done a lot with it. I don't know why, actually. This bed just seems to have gotten neglected since I started this garden. This is going to be the end of that because we are going to pull back the weed barrier and put in a whole bunch of compost in underneath that. What I'm thinking of doing is this part of the bed, probably right up to here, I'm thinking of putting all my dahlias in right here so that when you come in the gate, which is right over there, the first thing that you see are beautiful dahlias. And then along this side, I'm considering putting all of my sweet peas along here and then taking out the second trellis that I have over on that side. It's funny, I just really like, remember I said in my last video that I like fences? I like trellises too, and I don't really want to take these trellises down, even though I'm not planning on growing peas this year. That's something I've talked about before. I just don't find that the effort of growing peas and the space it takes up and all of that is really worth it when I can go buy a good bag of organic peas from Costco, for instance, for $14, and I could buy maybe 6 bags of those and that would last us through the winter. It's just not worth the trade-off for the space and the time and all of that it takes to shuck all those peas. So anyway, I'm not growing actual peas this year. I'll probably grow a few just for snacking on in the summer, but not rows of them. But I don't want to take these trellises down because I like the way they look. So I'll do at least one with sweet peas, and then maybe I'll do some of my cucumbers. Hey, I could do that. I could do some of my cucumbers along there. Maybe. This is an area of the garden that we're actually pretty much finished now. These beds have all been amended with compost, and they're all nice and raised up now, a lot higher than the ground. Over time, raised beds like these tend to settle and kind of become one with the level of the whole entire garden, and I like having them raised up like this. So these ones are all done. What I am trying to decide now is where I'm going to plant everything in my garden. Normally, I don't make those decisions until the day of planting. I'm pretty spontaneous that way, and I plant things where I just think they'll look the most beautiful. I'm not as concerned about companion planting or even planting in the same spot year after year because I amend my soil so well. They usually have enough nutrients in them that I could plant the same thing over and over again. The high tunnel would be a good example where that's really a necessity because I have the high tunnel to grow my tomatoes and my peppers, and there's not a lot of space in there to move things around and make sure the same thing's not planted in the same spot. But as long as I amend my soil with the nutrients that those plants need, it doesn't really matter that much. So that's just something that I've kind of found over the years. And as far as companion planting goes, I did, especially when I first started gardening, I did a lot of research into companion planting. But I have found over the years that it doesn't really make that much of a difference. My plants tend to do, what my plants seem to care about the most is that they get good water, they have enough light, enough warmth, and that the soil is amended well for that plant. Maybe I've just been lucky and I haven't planted plants together that compete too much or that do negatively impact each other, because I've just never really noticed a big difference with what I plant where. So I'm not someone that tends to get overly I don't know, hung up on kind of the right way to do things in the garden. Obviously, I have a lot of experience with gardening, so I have learned primarily through just experience with what works and what doesn't. But for the most part, I just really try to have a lot of fun with it. I obviously want the outcome to be a lot of good food for my family, but I also want it to bring me joy, and it does, thankfully, because it is something that definitely enriches my life in so many ways. But details and worrying about kind of crossing every T and dotting every I properly is not something that I worry about that much. I also got the back fence done. You can actually see what I'm talking about with the wind coming in off the field and going underneath the edge of that. What I did have was this whole entire area covered last year, and this was my asparagus patch, super infested with grasses, so I decided to cover it last year, and we'll see if the asparagus comes up this year. It had been so choked out by the grasses, it wasn't really growing anyway, and if it doesn't come up this year, I may till this spot up and plant potatoes there. I'm not sure, I haven't decided yet. You can see that there is a burnt area here. It actually goes all the way along my fence line. I've also burnt along all the fence lines around the entire garden. And that is just to kill off all the long grasses that get caught in the fence over the summer that you can't weed whack or get out in any other way. And then this area here had a whole bunch of long grass in, so I burnt that off. I was hoping to finish burning off the rest of the grass that I have to burn off on the other side along the fence line on the other side of my high tunnel, but it is too windy today. Definitely don't want to be doing any burning like that when it is at all windy, because those kinds of fires can get out of control really quickly. But I only have this one section left to do, and then I'm done for my grass burning this year, which is awesome. The biggest kind of issue that I'm having with planning out my garden and kind of thinking about where I'm going to put stuff this year is where I'm going to put my potatoes. I'm going to take you up to the potato garden, which I'm turning into a cut flower garden this year, in a minute. Excuse me, but my potato patch has something called scab in it. It is I think it's a bacteria, pretty sure it's a bacteria, it might be a virus, but I'm pretty sure it's bacteria that gets into the soil, and it can take years to get rid of it. So I can't grow potatoes up there again. I need somewhere else to put them. And I actually do have my potato order in. Oh, that's the other thing I meant to show you down in the greenhouse. So we'll go back there before we end this video, and I'll show you the potatoes that I'm planting this year. But I have my potatoes this year. I'm not going to be planting nearly as many as I did last year, because I ended up with way more than we needed. Our root cellar is still packed with potatoes, none of which I can use to plant again because they all have that scab on them, and that will reinfect the soil with it. So I can't use those. So anyway, I'm going to plant fewer, and I'm considering planting them in this area of the garden. But I don't know. I haven't decided yet. The other thing that I could do is, if my asparagus does not come up over here, is I could actually till this area up and plant my potatoes in here. So that is something, because this would be a big enough area, this whole area here, for the potatoes that we would need. And because we had it covered all year last year, a lot of the grasses have been killed off that were in here. I can see a few spots where the weed barrier must not have been overlapped right there that I could dig out, but that might be an option. So we'll wait and see if the asparagus comes up. We should be able to tell that within the next 3 weeks if it's going to come up, and if it's not, maybe that's what I'll do, is just run the tiller through here and plant them here, because these beds, I don't know, just look so beautiful. And potatoes tend to be more like a field crop, I feel like. I mean, I could plant them in here. It would look really nice. I could just do double rows in each one of these rows, and there'd be nice pathways in between. But it just feels like kind of a waste of this beautiful growing space. So I'll decide that later. I have been planting my brassicas here, broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage for the last couple of years, and some flowers along the far bed on that side. And that looks really beautiful, but I don't know. We'll decide when it comes to actually planting. And you know what it looks like we are gonna have is a storm. and it's cold enough we could actually get some snow. I hope not. Before this storm hits, let's head up to where I'm going to do the cut flower garden, and then we can go hide out in the greenhouse if the storm does hit, and I can show you all the potatoes, whoops, all the potatoes that I'm planting this year. This was my potato patch, has been for the last couple of years. I've also done squash up here before as well, but it's a really good size bed. I'm just going to run up to the far side just to give you kind of perspective to the size of it. Okay, there we go. So it's very big. Now I can't see filling this entire bed with flowers. I mean, I can, but I do feel like I'll probably put some squash or something up in here as well. Maybe I'll plant the corn up here along with all the flowers. But my plan for this is I want to fence it with some farm fencing and then put an arch right here, gate to go into it. And my motivation for that is because this is one of the first things that you see when you come up to our house. So you'll see the house on one side, and then when you look down this way, this is what you see. And I just think it would look so beautiful with an arch here and just filled with color, lots and lots of splashes of color, lots of different colors, and I think it would look so beautiful. So my plan would be, that's the north side. On that side is I would do tall flowers across the back and sort of stagger them. Oh, another cat. That's Nala. Nala. You silly cat. She is so cute. She's actually Simon's mom. Anyway, and then staggering them in size so that they would go from tallest down to the shortest down here, because this side is south. So that way I wouldn't end up with any tall flowers shading out the shorter flowers. And I just think it would look so gorgeous. I have a vision in my mind of what this could look like. And I've talked about this a lot before, especially over the last 6 months or so, but I'm trying to do things in my life that may even at first glance seem a little bit frivolous to do, but bring me joy and happiness. And I feel like this will bring me joy and happiness, but I also know it will anyone that comes here when they pull up and then they see this gorgeous rainbow of color down here. So let me show you from up here. Where I'm standing right now is at the edge of the parking lot. So when you pull up, this is what you see going down this way. And can you just imagine if that whole entire garden there was filled with beautiful flowers? Wouldn't that look gorgeous? So I think, I mean, I know that's what I'm going to do. That's what I decided to do a few weeks ago. Now it's just kind of planning it. And I do feel like I am going to have to be a little bit more strategic in my planting of this garden than the spontaneous way that I plant my vegetable garden, because of height and color and all of that. This will just be an experiment though. I am not a flower gardener. I plant flowers in my vegetable garden all the time, but I haven't really put in a lot of effort to learn a lot about growing flowers. So it's going to be an experiment. It's going to be a fun one, and I am excited to share it with you. But on that note, it is getting so cold. Let's go down to the greenhouse and I'll show you the potatoes that I'm planting this year. Okay, I'm going to show you all of the potatoes, excuse me, that we have. So I order all of my potatoes from Eagle Creek Seed Potatoes here in Canada. I've been ordering seed potatoes from these guys for I think about 10 years now, and they're absolutely fabulous. So when it comes to ordering potatoes, at least from these guys, the best time to put in your order is actually in the late fall. And then they have your order already. They do tend to sell out fairly quickly. So just maybe mark that on your calendar if you are in Canada and you want to order from these guys. I do have a code, I think it's for 10% off or something like that, but I'll put that down in the show notes for you, and then you can just note that. I'll try to remember to remind you in, say, October. Oh, the rain just hit. In October to get your seed order in. So these ones are German butterball. So I'm going to actually open each one of these bags and show you the potato and share a little bit about each potato. So German butterball is probably one of my favorite all-around potatoes. It's an excellent storage potato, stores way into the spring. I still have lots in the, like I was saying earlier, in my root cellar that are still good and nice and firm. It's a mid-sized potato, so this is a seed potato, so it's not going to be as big as they're going to grow when they're fully mature. And it's really a buttery, delicious, amazing potato. So highly recommend these ones. And you can see we have all of these different eyes on this potato. That's what these are called. And this is where the actual plant is going to start forming. So if I leave this out in some natural light for the next couple of weeks, we will start getting little leaves forming on these potatoes. And that's what we want. We don't want to put them in the ground like this, although we can. They will still grow. It just will take longer. We want to give them a bit of a head start doing what is actually called chitting, chitting, which is just exposing them to natural light, not direct sunlight, but natural light for a few weeks before you plant them. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going to open these up, because I need to open them up anyway and show you each potato as we go. So this one's one of my favorites. Okay, this next one is called Gold Rush, and this one is a good storage potato, good French fry potato. All of the potato varieties that I'm going to show you have good storage ability. That's what's one of the most important things to me when it comes to buying potato or seed potatoes, is that the potato that they're going to grow is going to store really well in my root cellar. So I'm not going to say that for every variety, but you can just know that all these varieties are really good storage potatoes. So you can see this one is a larger one. So this is the Gold Rush, and it's a larger potato. And what a lot of people do, and I have done in the past, is actually cut your seed potato into smaller sections, making sure that there are a few eyes on each section. You want to leave those out in the air so that the fresh cut can scab a little bit, so it'll just form a harder surface. That will help protect it against disease when you go plant that in the soil. The idea is that you're going to potentially get more potatoes doing that. In my experience, that doesn't actually hold out to be true. I have done direct comparisons between the two. And the reason that I think that is because this plant, this seed potato itself has a certain amount of potatoes that it's going to be able to grow based on the amount of sugars and resources that are in this seed potato itself, the number of eyes on it and all of that. And that does not change if you cut it in half. Both of those halves are just going to have half as many resources available to grow the amount of potatoes that it's going to grow. So you're going to get around the same pound for pound of potatoes as if you plant the whole one. And again, this is just my experience, so maybe your experience is different, but it's going to grow the same amount of potatoes as pound for pound as it will if you cut it in half. So I don't bother cutting them in half. It's just an extra step that I don't feel like is necessary. Okay, this one is called Excellency. I'll be honest, when it comes to the potatoes, I grow all these different varieties, mostly because it's fun to have different varieties, and there is definitely some difference in texture and flavor. But for the most part, I harvest all my potatoes and then they go into the root cellar and they come out and I make whatever I'm going to make with them, whether it's fries or mashed potatoes or hash or anything like that. These ones are a type of russet style potato, so they tend to make really good mashed potatoes. They're nice and fluffy and just a nice uniform shaped potato, and they don't have a lot of deep eyes or anything on them, so they make a nice potato because for mashed potatoes too, because they're really easy to peel. So that is another good one. Next up we have Bridget. This one is Bridget, and you can see that we're starting to get some action happening on there. These ones are good for French fries, and they're an early season. So there's, when it comes to potatoes, there's early, mid, and late season varieties. So just pay attention when you're buying, depending on when you want them to mature. I prefer mid to late season varieties for the most part because they size up really well and I can keep them in the ground until just before it freezes and then pull them all up and put them in the root cellar, and they tend to store best that way. Whereas the early season varieties, the reason that I like to grow at least one or two different early season ones is because then I get some early good sized potatoes and some delicious new potatoes. So those ones are a good one. Another good one, Irish Cobbler, which is, I think, my very favorite, are the German Butterball, and then Irish Cobbler are second up. They are a good all around. They're a little bit more gnarbly than the Excellency are, but they're really delicious flavor, really buttery flavor. Love these ones. We have Russet Burbank. So this is a potato that most of you are probably really familiar with as far as just the shape and the kind of potato that it is. This one is a really good mashed potato, kind of all around good potato. So the russet Burbank, another one that is a good one. And then we have the Sangra, and this one is a red skinned potato, another excellent kind of all around potato. A good boiling potato does hold together well to boiling. And it's just pretty. It's a pretty little potato. So that is another great one. This one is a Kennebec. Kennebec is a super popular potato. I've noticed in the last 4 or 5 years or so that everybody's growing it, and with good reason, because it is another excellent all-around potato, excellent storage ability, tends to be not as susceptible to scab as some of the other potatoes go, and just an all-around good potato. All right, friends, that is going to be it for me today. I hope that you enjoyed coming along with me for our second garden tour of the year. Very excited about this series. In our next video, we're going to be doing some more planting together. We have so much to do. This time of year is very busy. I do promise some more cooking videos coming up as well. I know we kind of go from winter where we're doing all kinds of cooking on the channel to into spring and summer where it's all about gardening. There's still, of course, a lot of cooking going on around here, and I will be sharing some of the recipes that I make for really busy days, because spring and summer and fall around here are kind of pedal to the metal, very busy, but we still need to eat good food. So I'll share some of the recipes with you that I cook this time of year to make just eating a little bit easier, where we don't have to spend quite as much time in the kitchen, but we can still eat good food. And on that note, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to run up to the house, grab something to eat. My house is actually really quiet right now because nobody is home, and then probably come down and enjoy spending some quiet time down here in the greenhouse, doing some planting and listening to the sound of the rain. I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye.